But I really wish somebody had made it known to me that like you don't necessarily have to be Quentin Tarantino to make a living making movies.
What's the one thing you wish someone had a heart-to-heart talk with you and said, this is what's going to happen and this is where it's going to be hard, and you learned it on your own? And
I wish that someone had set me down and been more like realistic in your expectations of what your career is going to be, or what it takes to make a living as a filmmaker. So when I was starting out, I had the same vision that most filmmakers do. Like, I'm going to make this low budget movie and I'm going to put it in film festivals and it's going to get discovered and some big distributor is going to pick it up and it's going to take off and I'm going to be Spike Lee or I'm going to be Quentin Tarantino or I'm going to be Robert Rodriguez. And that's what it takes to be able to make a living doing movies. But it's not so. There's a whole like sub level of working class filmmakers that are making movies that a lot of people would consider backyard movies shot for $10,000 or $20,000 or $30,000. And there are people out there that are making these movies and can make livings off of them. You might not be rich. I'm not on red carpets and, I'm not getting Oscars and awards and all of that, but I'm doing what I love to do and I'm making a living at it. And to be really honest, and a lot of people will say that I'm rationalizing it because I'm not at the higher level. But honestly, at this point in my career, like I don't want to be much higher. I mean, don't get me wrong. If I stumbled on a $500,000 budget as opposed to a 50, that'd be great. I'd love to do that. But as far as like directing, like studio films or tentpole stuff, I have absolutely no desire to do that anymore. I did when I started, but not now. But I really wish somebody had made it known to me that like you don't necessarily have to be Quentin Tarantino to make a living making movies.
it's interesting how people's desires for success change. And maybe you get tastes of it here and you realize, you know what, this is a lot of stress over here. I kind of like this realm where I'm doing my own thing, I'm still accountable, but I don't have to be, there's a price to pay, I think, for certain levels of a career.
Yeah, totally. And one thing that's always been not a problem, but a source of anxiety for me, especially when I have outside investors. Like, I feel a moral and of course a legal responsibility to return the money. And when you're making movies for $50,000 or $60,000 or $20,000, most of the people that are investing in those movies are not super rich people, because like real, rich, experienced investors, they're not going to invest in a $60,000 movie, and not because it can't be profitable, but because, there's a ceiling to how profitable it can be, like, yes, sky's the limit, but, it's outliers. For the most part, if you do 100 movies at 50,000, the most one of those is going to make in a year, in general terms, is like maybe a couple 100,000, and that's like at the tippity top. So for a regular investor, somebody that invests millions of dollars, or they have that's just not an exciting investment. They're like, what, I'm going to put 60,000, and 2 years later I'm going to get 150% back, or maybe 200. It's just not. So the people that are investing in these movies are usually, people like myself, that, we're making modest livings. We have a good year. We might have 10 or 15 that we can throw towards something, and we do, but so then as a filmmaker, when you get that money, you have all this, you want to be able to return it. One of my movies I produced back in 2010, and it was I think a $35,000 budget. And one of the producers who I'd worked with for years, it's finally our project to work together. And he had come into some like family money, a family member had passed or something like that. So he had a little bit of a nest egg, and he ended up putting like $15,000 into that movie. So eventually the movie made its money back, but it took a long time. And I felt that every day until that money was returned. That's just how I like me as a filmmaker. I can't take money and then not return it and feel okay. And I'm still my last narrative film, which I know my tagline is I make movies that make money, but my last narrative film, The Campus Death Day, it was a financial failure. It didn't make its budget back. And there was, quite a few like $2,000 and $3,000 investors in that they could really use that money, and it never made it. And I'll always feel bad about that.
Was there a moment, Jay, when the Hollywood dream was no more? You just wanted to be a working class filmmaker or middle class filmmaker?
I would say like maybe around 5 years ago, it started to occur to me that, hey, maybe like I'm not going to be directing $1 million movies, but I still kind of held on to it. It was still like that, like that's the goal. But somewhere in the last like 2 years, like moving out to Georgia and doing the documentaries full time, and honestly doing my YouTube channel, like I just realized that I really don't even desire that anymore. I don't desire the red carpet stuff anymore, or the adulation of millions, or whatever it is. It's just, it really became about the work. And what really changed for me for the better, and I recommend this for like all filmmakers, when you stop making movies 100% for yourself and start making them for others, is when things change. Or at least it did for me. When I stopped thinking about my little precious passion project and I start thinking about, like, with the documentaries, for example, I'm making a dog rescue documentary and I'm bringing awareness to, this issue and this small little dog rescue that might be struggling. Like, that's what making that movie was about, and then a byproduct of that, it can be financially successful. Or even, I'm getting ready to do a horror movie, Craving, my first narrative in a few years. But totally, this isn't just like, hey, this is my script that I wanted to make. The whole time I'm like, what is the subgenre? What is the audience expecting from the subgenre? What can I give them to make this better? And I think that leads to, more practical success.
You had been in LA how many years?
15.
15. So you came here from Georgia?
Now?
When you came out here to LA?
So originally I was from Indiana. I grew up in Indiana, and it didn't really seem like, I was really into movies. Like, I was a small kid. I, didn't really play sports. I just watched movies. But there was no, like, it didn't seem like that was a real thing that you could do. Like, I was shooting little videos and stuff, but it never crossed my mind, before I moved out of Indiana, that movies are something that I could do and make some money at. It's like you had to be in Los Angeles or New York, and you had to be, just famous and discovered. And I moved from Indiana to Louisiana. I worked offshore for about 1.5 years, saved some money for college, and then decided I was going to go to school. And the University of New Orleans had a pretty good film program. And so I went there, studied communications and film. And this was right around the time that Panasonic released their DVX 100, the 24p mini DV camera. Yeah. And it all of a sudden, and like, 28 days later it had come out. And I was like, oh, it's suddenly feasible to like shoot a feature film. And so I started thinking more about it as like a practical career. And that right after I graduated college that summer, we pulled together a few $1,000s, and that's when we shot Rise of the Undead, which was my first movie.